welcome to the Light and Energy Show with me, Claire Wiles. We're here today on a beautiful, beautiful sunny morning in Avebury in Wiltshire, and we're joined by a really special guest. We've got Peter Knight with us this morning, and Peter is an author, a sacred sites guide and a dowser, and he's going to tell us all about his new book about West Kennet Long Barrow.
Hi Claire, how are you doing?
Hi Peter, lovely to meet you.
Hi.
Thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Good to be here.
And what are you going to tell us about today?
Well, I'm going to take you up to somewhere very special and close to my heart later. We thought we'd meet at Avebury because a lot of people have heard of Avebury, the world's biggest stone circle. All these stones in a big circle and originally 2 avenues on the famous St Michael line, of course, which a lot of people have heard of. And it really is an incredible sight. I say the world's biggest stone circle here in Wiltshire.
Fantastic.
They're big, aren't they?
They just are. I mean, I know I'm not awfully tall, but certainly a huge stone. Fantastic, thank you.
But where I want to take you next, I mean, Avebury is the world's biggest stone circle, but it's amidst a more ancient landscape and a very special landscape. And I want to take you to somewhere, West Kennet Long Barrow, just over a mile to the south, which is just as magical, I think, but is a lot older.
Fantastic.
Please
My
join
goodness
me.
me, I'm so looking forward to this. We're here now at the south of Avebury at a place called the Sanctuary, which is a sacred site, just on the Ridgeway. So why are we here, Peter?
Well, Claire, we're here because when I started researching the book, I just didn't want to concentrate on what was at West Kennet itself. I wanted to look at it in the aspect of the whole landscape.
Right.
How did West Kennet sit in the landscape? And I realised it actually, West Kennet isn't actually on the landscape, it's actually held within it. And when you go to all these sacred sites around West Kennet, there's an intervisibility. For instance, we can see West Kennet now on the top of the ridge over there. You see it, the stones, and we're almost seeing it end on, but we're almost exactly east-west from here, from West Kennet. So we're looking more or less west now. But this is one of the things I found when you go to the sacred sites like the Sanctuary, when you go to Silbury Hill, when you go to East Kennet Long Barrow, when you go to the sites of some former stone circles that now aren't there, you get to see West Kennet up on the hill, and there are some amazing sight lines, some of them astronomically determined.
Oh, okay.
So West Kennet isn't sitting in isolation on the landscape, it's part of something greater.
Right, gosh, and the ancients obviously tapped into all of that and knew, and that's why they put it there and in alignment with the stars.
Exactly, the stellar alignments, the sun alignments with West Kennet and some of the local sites. And there's also an energetic alignment because you see Silbury Hill over there, the Mary current of the St Michael line spirals up Silbury, spirals back down, goes up to West Kennet, and then goes through the chambers, which we'll experience very shortly, and then flows up the hill and comes into the Sanctuary here where it crosses the Michael line. And one of the things I did find interesting about West Kennet is that a lot of people, including myself, regard it as a sort of womb tomb. The symbolism is very feminine, and it's only the Mary current that goes through West Kennet, so it seems to emphasise that aspect.
Yeah. And you picked that up, did you, through your dowsing abilities?
Well, the St Michael line and the Mary current on it had been well established, so we knew that all of this was there. But when we get there, there are certainly a lot of other energies around West Kennet. It's not in isolation. Lots of energies, lots of vortexes are coming up, and I can't wait to show you.
Excellent. Off we go then.
Ladies first.
Thank you. So on this lay-by here, on the edge of the reasonably busy A4, is where most people find their first trip to West Kennet Long Barrow. So where is it, Peter?
Well, if we look up there, it's actually on the hill.
Ah, so it is.
And that's actually very significant because it was like the ancestors were over there watching the people, because of course all the people were farming in the valleys, so you had your ancestors up on the hill kind of looking over you. But it's rather noisy here on the A4, which is actually the old Roman road going from London, Londinium, to Bath, Aquasulas. But I think we ought to get off the road and start walking up into a much more quiet countryside.
Great, okay, we're here now at this lovely spot, Peter. Thanks for bringing us here. This is a beautiful little river running under the bridge and a fantastic view of Silbury just behind us. Can you tell us why we've stopped here?
Well, it is a lovely spot, as you say, Claire. This is the sacred River Kennet that has one of its sources just to the north, and one of its other sources is the Swallowhead Spring, which again is on some of the alignments, astronomical and landscape alignments. But it's a great place to stop and have a look at Silbury Hill. This really is an amazing site. It's Britain's true pyramid. Originally it would have been pure white. Wow. 12 million cubic tons were used to build it in the early Neolithic. In the late Neolithic. So when in the early Neolithic, when West Kennet was built, Silbury wouldn't have been there at all. But they built it as West Kennet closed down, so it's like a change of emphasis.
Right.
And it would have been an incredible project that would have involved the whole community over several decades. But why it's interesting is that there's no passages in there, no tombs, nothing like that. It's totally solid. So I think it is the pregnant tummy of the Earth Mother on the sacred landscape. It's like the hub of the world. There's so many intervisible sites from there in the early Neolithic, in the late Neolithic. And what makes it important is that the Mary Current, which I mentioned earlier on, associated with the St Michael line, actually goes through Silbury Hill and then goes through Swallowhead Spring and then goes up the hill to West Kennet Longbarrow, which is where we're off to now.
Okay, right, off we go.
Yes, I want to pause you here actually, Claire, if we can, because this clouty tree, this offering tree, is actually in a very important position, because we're going to go up this path now. We're actually going to follow the alignment from Stonehenge to Avebury. So this is a very ancient pilgrimage track, and also, from terms of alignments, this is part of the Wessex Astrum hexagram. So this is a very important line, this line from Stonehenge to Avebury, and it actually goes right through West Kennet Longbarrow. So as we go up this hill, we're literally going to be walking in the footsteps of our ancestors.
Right.
Okay, Claire, now we start to see West Kennet appearing. We've been
yes,
down
we
in that
do.
dip, but now we're coming up the sacred path. You see the stone on the left, the big stone 45, the tallest one. And now look how the mound gradually appears to the right.
Yes.
It's getting longer and longer. And as we carry on up, you'll see more of it will appear to the right. It's like a surfacing dragon or serpent, isn't it? It's undulating. It gets longer and longer and longer, and eventually you'll be able to see the full extent of the 100-metre long mound, which is almost the longest in the country. And all of that would have been pure white originally. What an impression that would have made.
Yeah, to come up this hill and to come across that. Incredible.
Well, it was a clan icon, it's up there on the hill, and it's saying to interlopers or visitors, our ancestors are up there on the hill, nobody else is. So it's a sort of staking a claim on the land and its resources. But West Kennet Longbarrow was certainly designed to impress from a distance. Yeah.
I would think it certainly did that, without a doubt.
Yes.
We're right on top of the Longbarrow now. Peter, can you tell us a bit about this amazing landscape all around us?
Yes, well, as I mentioned before, I walked all this landscape and I came to the realisation that West Kennet Longbarrow sits within something more sacred, and that all these sacred sites are interlinked and very often indivisible. If we do a complete 360-degree swing, just to almost exactly to the north of us is Avebury, and then there's Wodden Hill, which is Woden's Hill, of course, we think might have been named in Saxon times, and the avenue is just the other side of that. Then as we come round, we have some clumps of trees. If you see those clumps of trees, they are actually Bronze Age barrows, which are much younger than West Kennet, but they were positioned very carefully to be visible from here, and they're aligned astronomically. The big clump on the left there aligns with the northern moon stand, and at the standstill, the northernmost that the moon can rise, and it's visible from here. And the big clump of barrows there of 2 or 3 trees is actually where the summer solstice sun rises, only from here. And then we move round, and where the busy road is disappearing over the hill there, we have the sanctuary where we were looking at West Kennet from quite recently, and then we pan around West Overton Church, which is the next call on the energy lines, and then we move around. And that big elongated tree clump there, you see that just sticks up into the skyline. That's actually East Kennet Long Barrow, which again is astronomically aligned with the solstices with West Kennet. So this marks the midwinter sunrise, and when you're at East Kennet, this marks the midsummer sunset. So everything is so intricately positioned in the landscape. If we move around further, there's a site of a stone circle over there on Hairstone Down, and then if we move around further, there's this magnificent view. You can see Milk Hill there, and then to the right of it, the double summit of Tan Hill. Those are the two tallest, highest hills in the whole of Wiltshire, and again, they have a lot of relevance as regards the astronomy, which I'll talk about very shortly. And then we come round and round and round, and then eventually we have the actual axis of the Long Barrow Mound. And there, I don't think that's a Neolithic tractor coming towards us, but this line's almost east-west, and again there are some more stellar alignments. And if we come round still further, that group of trees over there actually marks the summer solstice sunset, and it's where the two hills come down together. You see the darker hill and the lighter hill. That convergence of hills actually marks the midsummer sunset, only from here. And then of course we swing round more, and there's the magnificent later Neolithic monument of Silbury Hill, which wouldn't have been there originally. So you can see the views in every direction are incredible. So, and in Neolithic times, you'd have had lots of little farmsteads, lots of little huts dotting the landscape, but from all of them, you could look up at any time of the day and see the site of your ancestors on the top of this hill.
Yes, all watching over you.
I think that was part of it. Yeah. Shall we go and have a look, actually stand next to the megaliths now?
Yeah.
Before we go in?
So Peter, we're here by this enormous stone. Is this the entrance, or was this the entrance to the Long Barrow?
It was indeed the entrance, but it had a very complicated history, West Kennet Long Barrow. This stone actually was put up right at the very end. Originally we'd have been able to walk straight into the entrance, which was aligned more or less east-west. So these stones at the very edge are original, but this blocking stone and the two behind it, the two either side of it rather, we think were put up here at the very end in the late Neolithic. But even when they were putting stones up to seal a tomb, they did it with a lot of care and thought, because there's a lot of symbolism here. You remember I said that the Mary current comes through the site? Well, they've got feminine symbolism here. So you've got this lovely 1 metre gash, which we think is the vulva of the Earth Mother. So the Mary current is flowing through here 24/7, and this marks it. So even when they're putting this big stone up to seal the site, they were doing it with a lot of symbolism and relevance.
And there's a lot of intention.
A lot of intention, and there's a big left-facing head here. If you stand away more, you'll actually see there's at least one eye at the top, and the left-facing head. We'll show you more of those heads inside. But you've got to remember that this was built about, this stone, when it was put up about 2500 BC, when they were closing the site, would have been one of the tallest stones in the whole of Britain. Because Avebury was just being started, and the big stones at Stonehenge hadn't gone up. So, you know, this was an enormous feat. And it's a local sarsen stone, but when I say local, it still had to be brought at least a mile or two over the ridges and up the valleys. So it's been estimated that this stone might be upwards of 50 tonnes or more.
Good Lord, it's incredible to think they could have actually moved something of that weight.
It's amazing.
And actually positioned it in this way.
Very careful.
On the outside of the tomb. So these marks in the stone, these were made intentionally?
Yeah, these actually, Terence Mead and a friend of mine who first worked on this site actually found evidence that it actually has been chiselled out. You know, with stone and flint axes. There's a good intro. The drum's fallen over. I think it wants to go into the tomb.
Great.
Shall we go?
Yes, I'll follow you.
Right, before we go in, Claire, I'd like to introduce you to my partner, Sue Wallace.
Hello, Sue. Hello, lovely Claire. To meet you.
Who accompanied me on nearly all my field trips. She's a brilliant dowser and is also going to do some drumming with me inside, which is an amazing experience.
Thank you, Sue. Brilliant. Can't wait. So are there similarities here, Peter, with the grey mare and her colts near my home in Dorset?
Well, there certainly are. It's a very similar age,
Yeah.
the same sort of culture, the idea of a long mound with a chambered tomb. And there are actually other similarities. There's actually a crescental forecourt here. If you remember at the Grey Mare, there's actually the stones actually go in a slight arc.
Yeah.
And the same happens here as well, so with a revetment behind it. So there are a lot of similarities, but saying that, there are a lot of local differences. Just like as you go around the country, you get a lot of local differences in the church design and
Yes.
things like that. So each tribe had its own way of doing
Yes, an
things.
individual, yeah.
But we're actually standing at the entrance now, and this is a very special place. Because this is, if you imagine all the people out here for the feast or the burial or the rite of passage, whatever they're gathered for, and then the only person who goes inside, we think, is the shaman. So this is a liminal place. It's where you go from the light to the dark, from the known to the unknown, for your initiation, your rites of passage, or even to spend time in there as an experienced shaman, in with the bones and the skeletons of your ancestors.
So it wasn't everybody having free access to
I don't
come and go
think
as they
so.
liked.
I don't think so.
No.
Most of the general tribal clan members, of course, wouldn't want to go inside. It's pitch black most of the time, and all the skeletons, and you've got skulls staring back at you. So
yeah.
I think this was
That
part.
might be slightly scary.
I think so, yes. So I think this was a great place for initiates as well. Like with tribal cultures today, you get teenagers, they go through an initiation,
Yes.
which of course we lack in our society
do,
now.
yes.
And I think this is where initiates and people would have come for rites of passage to test their mettle. And the symbolism, of course, is like the womb.
Yeah.
You're going in to the dark of the womb to be reborn, in which point you're birthed again. Rebirthing
Yeah.
was going on in the Neolithic.
Yeah, yeah.
So are you ready to go inside?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Here we go.
So the basic design is a long, narrow passage with 4 side chambers and 1 larger end chamber. And all of these chambers had skeletons in them, but they weren't all evenly distributed. Some chambers had just juveniles in, and others had a mixture of male and female. The end chamber only had adult males. So it seems that even in death, the clan had their place.
Yes.
The members of the clan had their place
Yes.
even after death. So all these chambers as well, well certainly most of them are astronomically aligned as well. If we come into this one, there's no skeletons in here now, you're okay. Do you remember when we were up on the top, I mentioned those trees which mark the summer solstice sunrise? Well, look,
Yes.
you can see them from in here.
You can, yes.
So the sun
Yeah.
gradually throughout the year goes north, 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 and then at midsummer for about a week, the sun rises over those barrows, which are perfectly aligned with it, and the sun, golden brown, lights up all this chamber, which we saw
Yes.
at the midsummer. And there's also stellar alignments as well. Certain of the bright stars used to come in here as well. And a lot of people are writing today about the Pleiades, aren't they, and
Is that-
Sirius.
yes, yeah.
Well, the next chamber has links to that. This chamber is actually aligned with the rising of the Pleiades, and we think even possibly the rising of Sirius, because before the blocking stone was put there, this stone nearer to us, you can see, you would have been able to see the sky.
Yes.
So we think that
Yeah.
Sirius and some of the other stars may have also been visible. And also during the midsummer, when the moon rises far in the south, the full moon rises, we think, well, I have seen it, actually comes into this chamber as well. So you'd think from the outside that huge blocking stone would completely cover all the
Yeah.
astronomy, but
Yeah.
everything, is still there to be activated if you just got to be here at the right time.
Yes, to see it, and it must be incredible to stand in here and then it suddenly be filled with a golden light.
Oh, it's beautiful. All
Yes.
the silver light of the moon.
Yes. Oh, amazing.
Let's carry on down the chambers. So again, this passageway is a bit like the birth canal. You're going into the dark.
Yeah.
We're seeing it on a nice sunny day. I've been into West Kennet of a night, when the last candle goes out, and that really tests your resolve. And your imagination starts to work wonders. You start to see faces in the stones as all the lights
Yes.
flicker, and it's quite amazing. There's quite an interesting feature on this stone. You'll see there's a very smooth area. Do you want to touch that?
Oh gosh, yes, it is.
And we
It
think
feels
that's
very different to the rest of the stone.
It certainly is. We think that's where people polish their axes.
Oh really?
Because of course a lot of
Gosh.
stone and a lot of wood, a lot of rollers had to be created to bring all these stones up here.
Yeah.
So this is, archaeologically, we think it's a polishing stone.
Yeah.
So again, two more chambers here. Again, the sun and the moon sometimes even shines into this chamber. Can you see that little gap over there?
I can, yeah.
You can still see the skyline.
Yeah.
Amazing, isn't it?
It's absolutely incredible.
Amazing. And in this chamber was found 3 skulls against the back wall. All women's skulls, a juvenile, a middle-aged and an elderly. And I wonder whether that's representing the triple goddess, the 3 aspects of womanhood, the 3 aspects of the goddess.
Yes.
They were in a line against the back wall.
Right.
But the biggest,
Interesting.
it's amazing, isn't it? But the biggest chamber is the last one at the west
Okay.
end.
And the skulls and the skeletons that were found here, where are they now?
There's a few of them in the Wiltshire Museum. You can go and see some excellent exhibits. I've got a lot of pots and a lot of the finds in my book, a lot of photographs. Most of the skeletons found in the 1955-56 excavation by Piggott have gone up to Edinburgh, because that's
Right.
where he was the curator of at the time. But we're now standing in the West Chamber. This chamber features very heavily in my drumming evenings. You can hear the acoustics. You know, the voice is going deeper already, and the symbolism as well is very profound here, because remember I said it's almost facing east-west?
Yes.
So at the equinox, at the 2 equinoxes, 3rd week in March, 3rd week in September, the sun would actually stream into these chambers, and we've got 2 wonderful examples of simulacra. Can you see a left-facing head there?
I can.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, quite clearly.
Yeah.
There's the eye and the nose. I don't know if everybody can see that there. The eye and then it shows the nose and the mouth.
And over the other side, we have something that looks like a skull. Now, on damp days, on very humid days, and also when the water's coming in, this is actually covered in condensation, which gives the appearance of a left-facing skull. Because, of course, with a skull, the nose is missing, yeah?
Yes.
It's always indented.
Yeah.
So what happened, I think, I've got some diagrams of this in the book, but what I think happened is that at the equinox, in the spring equinox, when the sun is going that way, the rays of the sun first shone on the skull first. And then at the end of the week, the last thing the rays would shine on is the living head, because you're going from the winter part of the year
Yes.
to the living part of the year, the summer.
Yeah. So the
And
rebirth.
The
as it
rebirth,
were.
exactly. And then 6 months later in the autumn, the sun shines on the living head first, and then the last thing it shines on is the death head,
Yes.
the skull stone.
Yes.
So the symbolism is even the right way
Yes.
round.
Yeah.
But there's more symbolism here. Can you see these eyes? You see the holes in the
yes.
stones. When you've got flickering lamps in here and things like that, these
Yeah.
eyes move. And there's and you probably see my voice has got a slight echo. We found some acoustic hotspots in here.
Uh-huh.
If I hit the drum over here, it's a pretty resonant sound, and it would have been even more so before this rather intrusive skylight was put in. It was like an igloo. It had a corbelled roof,
Yes.
which is like banging your drum inside an enormous bell,
Wow.
and it reverberates around.
Yes.
So that was pretty powerful over there. But when you come into this corner,
My
sound-
goodness, you can feel the vibration.
it is.
Mm.
It's amazing. And they found some skeletons in front of this, and I think this is the doorway to the ancestors through the skull stone.
Right.
My shaman Heather and myself, she's been in here and she's taken me into trance and meditation, and I've literally gone through that stone to meet my father, whose ashes were scattered at this site.
Right.
So that was a very
Yes.
profound
Yeah. Powerful. My
moment.
goodness.
Indeed.
Yes.
You can hear my voice is a bit deeper in here, and when a lot of drummers get in here, we actually create standing waves, a bit like they found at Newgrange. So where Sue is standing there is another acoustic hotspot where your drum will go a lot deeper. But what I'd like to try, can you be my guinea pig?
I can.
Oh, you make a great guinea pig. Here we go. So if you stand in front of the skull stone there, and I'm going to drum up and down you.
Okay.
I won't do it for long. We don't want you to ascend just yet. And you might feel something after a few seconds that the sound and the vibration isn't actually coming through your ears. It's actually activating all your chakras.
Okay.
Okay, Claire, so I'm going to drum up and down now, up and down your chakras, and see what you feel.
Okay.
How did that feel?
Thank you, Peter. That felt, I felt a real strength within my aura. It felt very, very strong and moving upwards towards the crown chakra, which was very powerful, and almost like the sound was so emanating from the stone behind me, absolutely filling my whole body. Incredible experience. Thank you.
That's part of the effect, because these stones are so dense, they don't absorb the sound,
No,
they're
it
deflected.
Comes
And don't
back,
forget, you've
yeah.
had a short taster there of what the shamans
Yes.
would have done, perhaps all night, perhaps all week, with
Yeah.
sleep deprivation, food deprivation, trance drumming, the ingestion of hallucinogens. We know lots of psychoactive plants were here, like the fly agaric, right back in the early Neolithic. They found some remains of psychoactive plants at Neolithic sites. So that was all part of the experience of the shaman coming into the dark to contact the spirits of the ancestors to bring back information for the tribe, which is the basis of shamanism today.
Yes. Yeah.
So that was all going in here. You don't
Yeah.
design a place like this with the acoustics in mind for the dead.
No.
No.
Gosh.
And I've studied all the excavation
Yes.
reports, and all the skeletons in here, and especially the side chambers, were all piled up against the back wall. They weren't just laid neatly flat. So that shows that each chamber had a space not just for the dead, but for the living.
Amazing.
Work by myself and an archaeologist has found that the best drum beat is about 2 or 3 beats per second, and that seems to activate a certain part of your brain, your intuitive side, to help take you off on a journey. So shall we have a quick go briefly?
Yep.
Okay. Hallelujah. And the truth shall set you free. Yeah, so all the things that we think about as new aging, healing, shiatsu, Reiki, all that sort of thing, rebirthing, it was going on here in the Neolithic.
Yeah.
Nothing is new.
No.
I think we ought to call it the old age.
Yes, yes.
That's what we're going back to.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And the vibration that goes through you with the drumming. I'm not sure I knew quite what I was doing with the rattle, but hey,
You
hey.
did fine. You do your own
Was-
thing.
was
You do
amazing.
your own
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
We brought people in here who've never held a drum, never held a rattle in their life, and they just take to it, and it brings up emotions in them. It brings up lots of healing.
Yes.
Some people break down in tears.
Yes.
I'm sure it's not my chanting, hopefully. But this is a place where your emotions are brought to the surface, and I would respectfully suggest that it's always been the case here.
Yes.
This is where people were coming thousands of years ago for, as well as planetary healing, to heal themselves. A lot of people do come in here, of course, and one of my little soapboxes is about stuff that gets left in here, such as night lights and things like that. And it's quite good today because one of our friends has just collected them, but I did want to make the appeal that for people who come and use this place for healing, which is great, we do it ourselves. This place is connected to everywhere else on the planet, down all the ley lines and energy lines, so this is a great place to come and do that. But let's treat it with respect, Let's any night light you have to light, have it in the middle of the chamber. Let's remove all the ritual litter that we see in here and any other things that people leave in here. And don't put the candles or night lights on the stones. Can you see all the damage here that's been done
yes.
by that sort of thing?
Yeah.
Because there's no evidence that the shamans ever sooted or burnt the stones. So if they didn't do it, what gives us the right to?
That's a really valid point. Thank you, Peter.
Okay, Claire, I've already mentioned the earth energies, and you remember the other side of this stone. I mentioned that the Mary current was coming through this big blocking stone and going into the chambers. So if you want to focus, just focus. With dowsing, it's all about focus, because there's so much going on here energetically. Unless you focus on one thing, you could be picking up on anything.
Okay.
So if you just focus on, please show me the Mary flow, and let's see what happens. Fingers crossed. Yes, you got it. You got it. So they've crossed. You're on the centre of the flow. You're on the strongest part of it.
Okay.
Excellent. Well done.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
See, if I take that, I can now follow that flow into the chambers. One rod is very good for showing you which way it's flowing, because you're following the serpent, you're following the snake. So there it is. That's that one you picked up. And look how it's moving like a serpent. It's not straight. It's organic. And the energies get a lot stronger and wider around full moon. And what I'm doing here, it's actually going into this chamber, and then it's spiralling around. Spiralling around. Because there's little offshoots going off each one of these, off the passage, and forming a little spiral inside each chamber. So again, and this is where they're living, this is where the shamans were sitting when they were doing their shamanic practices, right in the centre of each one of the spirals. They knew exactly where to sit, and they knew exactly how to design this place to make maximum use of something that was naturally flowing across the landscape. They merely had to enhance it. The place is alive, even now. You got it, you've got it.
That's amazing, Peter. You can really feel the dowsing rod is taking you round. Incredible.
Indeed.
Thank you. So when did it? What happened at the end, Peter? When did it shut?
Well, this was in use for about 1,000 years, and then about 2,500, 2,400 BC, it was, sealed up eventually. But it wasn't all of a sudden, because in the preceding centuries, things were still being put in here, broken pots, skulls, animal bones from all the feasts, and it gradually filled up to the ceiling over many centuries.
Goodness.
So it wasn't just, let's get a load of earth in there and seal it up.
Yeah.
So this is another thing that makes West Kennet so exceptional. So again, about 2,500, it was full to the ceiling. This blocking stone was put off, and then it was no longer used for burials. But it carried on being a totem, an icon site. The fact that we had Bronze Age burial mounds lining up with West Kennet, and even in Roman times, votive offerings were left outside. So even the Romans recognised it as a place of the ancestors.
Yes. And a significance within the local landscape.
That's right.
Yes.
And even bringing it forward to this day, I think West Kennet is part of the landscape today, and I think we can use it again, we can activate it again. I think West Kennet needs our interaction. I think it's inviting us once again,
yes,
at this time of great global trouble,
yes,
to use these ancient places again.
Yes. And to connect with the earth energies once again.
Exactly. I think one of the reasons to do that as well is because we need to regard the earth as sacred again. Because when you think about it, when you hold an object as sacred, be it your rosary beads, your Bible, the Quran or whatever, you can't possibly destroy that object, can you, if something's sacred to you? And I think once, again, as a species, we regard the earth as sacred, then how can we possibly carry on destroying it?
Yes, absolutely.
And the reason I take people to sites like this, one of the reasons is because the early Neolithic was a time when people only took what they needed. And isn't that a great lesson for us today?
It's a great lesson to have what you need and no more.
Exactly. And that's what they were doing here
Right.
5,000 years ago.
Yes.
What a lesson.
It certainly is. And what an amazing experience to be inside the Long Barrow and see everything and feel everything. You know, with the drumming at the back. It's absolutely fantastic. Thank you, Peter.
My pleasure.
So we're sat now on the top of West Kennet Long Barrow. What a fascinating journey we've had today. Thanks so much, Sue, and so much, Peter. It's been amazing. And if I could just read something from the final part of your book here. And West Kennet Long Barrow still stands there on that ridge south of Avebury, watching over the landscape, continuing to age with grace and dignity. I believe it wants to be utilised again. It yearns to be a focus for the high spiritual ideals it once was. People come and go, religions come and go, but West Kennet Long Barrow remains. I believe West Kennet Long Barrow is here today because it may yet turn out to be as vital to us as it was over 5,000 years ago. And you can read more in Peter's book, West Kennet Long Barrow, Landscape, Shamans and the Cosmos. So, once again, thank you so much. Thank you. In Light and Energy from me, Claire Wiles, and of course all the show notes and the links are on www.lightandenergychannel.tv. Thank you for joining us today.